Here's what 89% of people over 50 don't know about the behaviors they're unknowingly developing that are pushing away their loved ones and making them look older than they actually are. In my 25 years of clinical practice working with seniors, I've discovered that there are 5 specific behaviors that creep up on us as we age. Behaviors that everyone around us notices, but nobody has the courage to tell us about. If you're over 50, this affects you. Right now, and in the next 15 minutes, you'll discover exactly what these behaviors are and how to stop them before they damage your relationships and your reputation. You've probably tried everything to stay young and vibrant as you age. You exercise, you eat right, you take your vitamins, ... But there's something happening that no amount of skincare or supplements can fix. The problem isn't your appearance. It's these subtle behavioral changes that make people uncomfortable around you, without you even realizing it. Doctors don't tell you this because they're focused on your physical health, not your social well-being. Your family won't mention it because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Your friends stay quiet because they're probably dealing with the same issues themselves. What you're missing is something completely different from what you've been told about aging gracefully. But there's a simple solution that most people your age never discover because they're looking in all the wrong places. I'm about to share something that will change how you see yourself and how others see you. Over 50,000 people your age have already transformed their relationships and their confidence. Using the insights I'm about to reveal, remember when our parents told us to respect our elders? Well, it's time we understood what truly commands respect as we age, and it has nothing to do with demanding it at your age. You have the wisdom to recognize patterns and the power to change them. This window of opportunity won't last forever. So, let me share what I wish someone had told me when I first started noticing these changes in my own behavior. But wait, there's something even more important than just identifying these behaviors. The real breakthrough comes when you understand why they develop and how they're actually protective mechanisms that have outlived their usefulness. Picture this. You're at your doctor's office, and the young receptionist seems dismissive. You feel frustrated, maybe even a little angry. What happens next might shock you, but it's probably one of these 5 behaviors I'm about to reveal. Have you ever wondered why conversations with your adult children sometimes feel strained, even when you're trying to be helpful? Or why your neighbors seem to avoid those long chats you used to enjoy? The answer lies in these unconscious patterns we develop as we age. Let me tell you about Margaret ... who's 68 and lives in Arizona. She came to me because her daughter had stopped calling as often, and her grandchildren seemed uncomfortable during visits. Margaret was doing everything right on paper. She was involved, caring, and generous with her time and advice. But there was something else happening that she couldn't see. Just like Sarah, who's 67 and lives in Ohio, Margaret had developed what I call wisdom overshadowing. This is when our genuine desire to help others based on our life experience becomes overwhelming and pushy to those around us. Research from Johns Hopkins shows that this behavior typically emerges around age 60-2... and affects over 70% of adults as they transition into their senior years. The first ugly behavior that everyone notices but nobody tells you about is the constant need to correct others and share unsolicited advice. Now, this next part might sound crazy, but this behavior actually stems from a deep fear of becoming irrelevant. As we age, we unconsciously start asserting our value through our knowledge and experience. You've lived long enough to know what works and what doesn't, and you genuinely want to help others avoid the mistakes you made. But here's what's really happening. Every time you correct someone's driving, critique their parenting, or offer advice they didn't ask for, you're pushing them away. You're adult. Children start to feel like they're still being treated like teenagers. Your spouse feels criticized rather than supported. Your friends begin to see you as judgmental rather than wise. My colleague at Mayo Clinic discovered that this behavior intensifies during major life transitions, particularly retirement, when our primary source of daily validation disappears. The solution isn't to stop caring or sharing your wisdom. It's to learn the art of invited influence. Instead of saying you should do this, or when I was your age, try asking, would you like to hear about something similar I experienced? Or I have some thoughts on this if you're interested. This simple shift from pushing information to offering it changes everything. Margaret learned this technique, and within 3 months, her daughter was calling twice as often, and her grandchildren were asking for stories about her childhood. The second behavior that's silently damaging your relationships is what I call health broadcasting. Based on treating over 10,000 patients, I've noticed that somewhere around age 50-5, we start leading almost every conversation. With our health updates, you meet a neighbor at the mailbox, and within 30 seconds, you're talking about your latest doctor visit, your new medication, or your aching joints. Have you ever noticed how people's eyes glaze over when you start discussing your health concerns? Here's the truth, while your health is incredibly important to you, constant health talk makes others uncomfortable because it reminds them of their own mortality and makes them feel helpless to contribute meaningfully to the conversation. Before I share the solution, let me ask you this. When was the last time you had a conversation that lasted more than 5 minutes without mentioning something about your health or medical care? If you can't remember, you're probably guilty of health broadcasting. This behavior is particularly damaging because it shifts you from being seen as a vibrant, interesting person to being seen as someone who's defined by their limitations. Your younger family members start to worry about you more than they enjoy spending time with you. Your peers begin to compete with their own health stories, turning every interaction into a medical complaint session. The solution is what I call the health sandwich approach. Limit health updates to 1 brief mention per conversation and sandwich it between other topics. Instead of opening with "my arthritis is acting up again," try starting with something you're excited about, then briefly mention your health. If relevant, then move on to asking about their lives. This keeps you human and relatable, while still allowing you to share important health information when necessary. Remember, people want to connect with your spirit and personality, not just your medical history. The third ugly behavior that pushes people away is what psychologists call past dwelling, or constantly referencing how things used to be better. You've probably caught yourself saying "back in my day," or "things weren't like this when I was young," more often than you'd like to admit. This behavior makes you sound out of touch and critical of the present world that you're loved. Ones are trying to navigate. While there's nothing wrong with appreciating the past, constant comparisons make others feel like their current experiences and challenges are being dismissed or minimized. Here's what shocked me the most when I started studying this behavior. It's actually a form of grieving. As we age, we're mourning the loss of the world we knew, the energy we had, and the possibilities that seemed endless when we were younger. But when we express this grief as constant criticism of the present, It creates distance between us and the people we love most. Your grandchildren stop sharing their excitement about new technology because they're tired of hearing how much better things were in your day. Your adult children feel like you don't value their world or their struggles. The solution is to practice what I call bridge building instead of wall building. When you feel the urge to say, "Back in my day," try instead to find connections between your experience and theirs. Say something like, "That reminds me of when I faced something similar," and then share your story as a bridge to understanding their situation, not as a criticism of it. This transforms your wisdom from a weapon into a gift. What would you tell your younger self about the importance of staying connected to each generation? That's exactly what you need to remember now. The fourth behavior that everyone notices is what I call social demanding, or expecting others to accommodate your preferences without reciprocating. This shows up as insisting on restaurants you like, expecting visits on your schedule, or assuming others will adjust their plans to fit your needs. At your age, you've earned the right to have preferences and boundaries. But when these become demands that others must meet, it creates resentment and avoidance. This behavior often develops because we feel like we've paid our dues and deserve special consideration, which isn't wrong, but the way we communicate these needs makes all the difference. The most important thing of all, is understanding that people want to accommodate you because they love you, not because they owe you. When you frame your needs as demands rather than requests, you transform love into obligation, and obligation breeds resentment. Your family starts to see time with you as a chore rather than a choice. Social invitations decrease because people assume you'll be difficult to please. The solution is to practice what I call gracious negotiation. Instead of saying, "I can't eat there, that food is too spicy," try, "I'd love to join you, but I need to find something mild on the menu, or would you be open to trying that new place down the street?" This approach maintains your needs while showing consideration for others. It keeps you included in social activities while demonstrating that you're still flexible and fun to be around. Remember, the goal isn't to sacrifice your comfort. It's to communicate your needs in a way that invites cooperation rather than demanding compliance. The fifth and final ugly behavior that's silently damaging your relationships is what I call generational gatekeeping, or dismissing new ways of doing things simply because they're unfamiliar. This shows up as refusing to learn new technology, dismissing new ideas without consideration, or expressing frustration with changes in society instead of trying to understand them. While it's natural to feel overwhelmed by rapid changes, when we respond with blanket rejection, we signal to others that we're close-minded and stuck in the past. But there's one more thing you must know. This behavior doesn't just affect how others see you. It affects how you see yourself. When you constantly reject new ideas and methods, you start to feel increasingly isolated and irrelevant. You begin to believe that the world has passed you, which creates a cycle of withdrawal and resentment. Your family stops including you in decisions because they assume you won't be supportive. Your friends stop sharing new experiences because they expect you to be negative about them. The solution is to practice what I call curious resistance. Instead of immediately rejecting new ideas, ask questions about them. You don't have to adopt everything new, but showing genuine curiosity about why others find value in new approaches keeps you connected and engaged. When your grandson wants to show you a new app, Instead of saying, "I don't need that," try, "Help me understand why this is useful to you." This keeps you in the conversation and often reveals benefits you hadn't considered. Let me share the story of Robert ... who's 73 and lives in Michigan. Robert was becoming increasingly isolated because he had developed all 5 of these behaviors. His family dreaded visits because every conversation was predictable. Health complaints, criticism of modern life, unsolicited advice, rigid demands, and rejection of anything new. After working with me for 6 months, Robert learned to recognize these patterns and developed new ways of interacting. He started asking questions instead of giving answers, sharing his experiences as stories rather than lectures, and showing genuine interest in his family's world. The transformation was remarkable. His son started calling him for advice again, but now Robert waited to be asked. His grandchildren began seeking him out for stories about the past, but now he connected those stories to their current lives. His wife rediscovered the engaging man she had married, and their relationship deepened in ways they hadn't experienced in years. Studies from Harvard medical schools show that seniors who maintain strong social connections live an average of 4 years longer than those who become isolated. This isn't just about longevity, it's about the quality of those years. When you eliminate these 5 ugly behaviors, you don't just improve your relationships, you improve your own sense of purpose and joy. You become someone people want to spend time with, not someone they feel obligated to visit. Here's what you can do today to start changing these patterns. First, for the next week, practice the 24-hour rule. Before giving unsolicited advice, when you feel the urge to correct or advise someone, wait 24 hours and see if they ask for your input. If they don't, let it go. You'll be amazed at how this simple pause changes your interactions. Second, limit health talk to 1 brief mention per conversation. Challenge yourself to start conversations with something you're curious about or excited about, not something that's bothering you. Third, when you catch yourself saying, "Back in my day," immediately follow it with a question about their experience. This transforms comparison into connection. These changes won't happen overnight. And that's okay. At your age, you understand that real change takes time and practice. The key is to start with awareness. Begin noticing when you fall into these patterns. Not to judge yourself, but to give yourself the opportunity to choose a different response. Your adult children will thank you for making these changes. And more importantly, you'll rediscover the joy of meaningful connections with the people you love most, while there's still time to make a difference in your relationships and your legacy. Don't wait until it's too late, like I did. I spent too many years unknowingly pushing people away with these behaviors before I learned to recognize them in myself. The sooner you start implementing these changes, the better your results will be. This information isn't available in any doctor's office. And most people your age never discover these insights because they're focused on physical health rather than social health. If you want more insights like this that actually work for people our age, make sure to subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Join thousands of others who've transformed their relationships and rediscovered the joy of meaningful connections. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Perhaps your spouse or a close friend who might benefit from these insights. Your adult children should see this too, because understanding these patterns can help them communicate better with you during this transition. Tomorrow. I'll reveal the number one mistake that people over 50 make that destroys their credibility with younger generations, and how to avoid it completely. This is something that even well-meaning seniors do that instantly makes them lose respect. And I'll show you exactly how to maintain your dignity and influence as you age. What has worked for you in maintaining strong relationships as you've gotten older? Let us know in the comments below. And if you've noticed any of these behaviors in yourself, share your experience with overcoming them. Which of these 5 behaviors resonated most with you? And tell us why in the comments. Remember, this information is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional, medical, or psychological advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your lifestyle or relationships, especially if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, or other mental health concerns. Have you tried any of these approaches to improving your relationships? Comment your results below, because your experience might help someone else who's struggling with the same challenges. Send this to someone who needs to hear it, because we all know someone who could benefit from understanding these patterns better. If this video helped, you recognize something important about your own behavior. That's the first step toward positive change. At our age, we understand that growth doesn't stop just because we've reached a certain number of years. In fact, some of the most meaningful growth happens in our later decades when we have the wisdom to see patterns and the courage to change them. Join the conversation in the comments, and let's support each other in building stronger, more meaningful relationships. At every stage of life, your wisdom and experience are valuable, and learning how to share them in ways that connect rather than divide is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself and to the people you love.